heavy roles slowly eroded his stamina. The physical wear showed during later productions, such as Shooter and the promotional cycle for Toy Story 3. By his late 70s, the fatigue had become impossible to disguise. Beatty died on June 13, 2021, at 83 years old, passing quietly at his Los Angeles home after more than 50 years of non-stop work. He left behind 8 children, a career of more than 160 roles, and an estimated net worth of $5 million. Modest for a man of his longevity, but earned through relentless endurance rather than glamour. Oba Babatunde as Willie Long. Abba Babatunde was born on December 31st, 1952, in Queens, New York. At 47 years old, he played Willie Long, the gentle inmate whose smile masked years of buried pain, in Life, 1999. It was a performance rooted in a truth he understood intimately. Quiet men often carry the heaviest histories. The character resonated deeply with him because the heaviest struggles of his own life unfolded behind closed doors. His marriage to Jane Wheeler began in 1981 full of optimism, but the demands of his Broadway years quickly tested them. Touring with Dreamgirls kept him away for months, creating arguments over separation and finances that neither expected so early in their marriage. When he transitioned to Hollywood, the industry's racial barriers struck even harder. He lost leading roles, took underpaid supporting work, and went through stretches where acting couldn't support the family. By the mid-1990s, the pressure had escalated to the point where they nearly divorced, saved only by Babatunde's return to steadier stage work and voice acting. As his career expanded, his body paid the price. Constantly shifting between filming, rehearsals, and narration booths left him drained, especially during productions like Philadelphia and later Dear White People. Exhaustion became its own chronic battle, forcing him to adopt strict routines, yoga, controlled schedules, and long recovery days to keep himself from burning out entirely. Now, at 73 years old, Babatunde continues acting across television and stage, choosing projects that allow him balance rather than pushing him to collapse. His estimated net worth of $1.5 million reflects a career built not on lucky breaks, but on decades of discipline, survival, and a refusal to disappear from an industry that once tried to shut him out. Bernie Mac as Jangle Leg. Bernie Mac was born on October 5, 1957 in Chicago, Illinois. At 42 years old, he played Jangle Leg, the jittery, sharp-tongued inmate whose chaotic humor in Life, 1999. It was barely hid a much darker dependence beneath the jokes, yet a performance shaped by a man already fighting demons long before Hollywood knew his name. His marriage to Rhonda Gore, whom he married in 1977, survived storms few couples could endure. During his rise from Chicago clubs to Def Comedy Jam, Mac's battles with alcohol and cocaine strained their home life to the breaking point. When the original kings of comedy finally made him a star, the workload exploded, which brought new arguments about overwork, absence, and the fear that success might take him away in a different way. Just as their marriage stabilized, his health collapsed. Diagnosed with sarcoidosis in 2004, he pushed through filming Ocean's 13, Guess Who, and the final seasons of The Bernie Mac Show while coughing through takes, hiding joint pain, and losing sleep. The disease weakened his immune system, and pneumonia followed him like a shadow. In his last year, 3 hospitalizations in a few months forced him to cancel tours, and Rhonda became both wife and full-time caregiver. Mac died on August 9, 2008, at only 50 years old, after pneumonia triggered fatal cardiac arrest in a Chicago hospital. He left behind Rhonda, their daughter Janice, and a legacy cemented by The Bernie Mac Show and Ocean's 11. His net worth of $1.5 million reflected a career built quickly, burned brightly, and ended far too soon. Proof that even the loudest laughter cannot drown out the kind of pain he carried. R. Lee Ermey as older sheriff. Pipe. R. Lee Ermey was born on March 24, 1944, in Emporia, Kansas. At 55 years old, he played older Sheriff Pike, the rigid, unforgiving lawman in Life, 1999. The role fit him so naturally because his real life had been molded by battles far harsher than anything on screen. His first marriage fell apart shortly after his return from Vietnam, when the PTSD he brought home began poisoning every conversation and every attempt at normalcy. Alcohol became his nightly armor, and arguments with his first wife escalated until the marriage shattered under the weight of trauma. When he married Neela Ermey in 1975, the love was real, but the scars remained. She spent decades navigating the mood swings and the unpredictable temper that followed him long after he hung up the uniform. As acting replaced the battlefield, typecasting became its own prison. His explosive success in Full Metal Jacket made him famous, but it also chained him to the drill sergeant persona for nearly every job that followed: Mississippi Burning, C7N, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The constant intensity, paired with years of smoking on set and off, worsened the lung damage that PTSD had already made harder to manage. By the early 2000s, COPD and repeated pneumonia left him short of breath between lines, forcing him to pace his work and cling to oxygen during long shoots. Ermey died on April 15, 2018, at 74 years old, from complications related to pneumonia, passing away quietly in a Santa Monica hospital. His estimated net worth of $12 million stood as the final measure of a man who survived war, Hollywood, and himself. Barry Shabaka Henley, as Poker Face. Barry Shabaka Henley was born on September 15, 1954, in New Orleans, Louisiana. At 42 years old, he played Poker Face, the silent card shark in Life, 1999. The role mirrored the quiet endurance he carried off screen, where hardship often arrived without warning. His marriage to Vanessa Shaw during the 1990s began with promise, but strained quickly under the demands of a career that refused to settle. When his early TV pilot Clippers failed and left him drowning in debt, the financial pressure seeped into their home life. As his career revived with The Terminal, 2004, and steady work with director Michael Mann, the travel and long shoots replaced financial stress with emotional distance, and the marriage unraveled quietly but painfully in the 2000s. The collapse of his marriage collided with a period of mental strain he rarely discussed. The uncertainty of being cast mostly in supporting roles, Collateral, Miami Vice, left him feeling overlooked, triggering bouts of depression that bled into the exhaustion of constant auditions. He rebuilt slowly through stage work and teaching,
My favorite
using
movie.
the discipline he
Y'all
learned
gotta
from
watch
jazz
this.
performance to navigate years of instability
Gotta
until his
watch
mental
this.
health steadied again.
It's my favorite movie, man.
Now, at 68 years
Talking
old,
about my
Henley
peeps.
remains active in television, recently gaining new recognition through Bob Hart's Abishola and recurring roles across major networks. His estimated net worth of $3 million reflects a life built not on luck, but on resilience. A fitting ending for a man who has spent decades mastering how to keep a calm face.
Wellness knows you love your pet, but not their dumpster breath. Wellness Whimsies are the long-lasting daily dental treats that help to reduce plaque and tartar, because great oral health makes them a lot easier to love. Wellness. Feed well, be well.
Philips Norelco One-Way presents Shave All Things. Your style made simple with Philips Norelco One-Way 360.
Introducing Luxury's Most Wanted, the first ever Infiniti QX80 and QX60 Sport. Make the perfect getaway with exceptional offers on the new Infiniti Sport model, only at your local Infiniti retailer.
Your child is awesome. They're curious, confident, and full of wonder.
child here so they can be prepared here. Kitty Academy Educational Childcare.
Clarence Williams III as Winston Hancock. Clarence Williams III was born on August 21st, 1939, in New York City. At 60 years old, he played Winston Hancock, the silent, watchful inmate whose presence in life, 1999. That quiet danger mirrored the man himself, someone who had already survived fame, addiction, collapse, and reinvention. His marriage to actress Gloria Foster began in 1967, a partnership built on theater, art, and shared ambition. But when heroin addiction consumed him through the 1970s, years after the Mod Squad had made him a TV icon, Foster watched him spiral into near-fatal overdoses, missed rehearsals, and professional humiliation. The addiction poisoned everything it touched. Roles disappeared, opportunities dried up, and the marriage eventually fractured in 1984. They stayed close, but the marriage never recovered from the years when drugs spoke louder than love. The aftermath followed him for decades. Even when he rebuilt himself through Purple Rain, Deep Cover, and a wave of 1990s television work, the industry refused to forget the chaos, typecasting him as troubled fathers, addicts, or broken men. He worked constantly, but rarely freely. When illness finally crept into his life, colon cancer took advantage of a body already worn down by years of strain. Williams died on June 4th, 2021, at age 81, passing away in Los Angeles and later being laid to rest at St. Charles Cemetery in New York. His estimated net worth of $1 million reflected a lifetime of brilliant moments, overshadowed by battles he never stopped fighting. Rick James as Spanky. Rick James was born on February 1st, 1948 in Buffalo, New York. At 51 years old, he played Spanky, the smooth-talking prison musician, in Life, 1999. This role disguised chaos far darker than anything shown on screen. And by then, his downfall had already begun swallowing the legend behind Super Freak. His marriage to singer Adina Howard unraveled under the weight of cocaine addiction that had taken full control of his life. The violence, the paranoia, and the sleepless binges tore through the relationship long before either could admit it was over. His 1998 conviction for assaulting 2 women marked the moment his career collapsed entirely. The man once called the king of punk funk, now reduced to headlines soaked in scandal and pity. The damage didn't stop there. Years of cocaine abuse left his heart permanently weakened, and after a massive on-stage stroke in Denver in 1998, he never truly recovered. Diabetes, a pacemaker, and chronic exhaustion shaped his final years, even as he tried to revive his name through appearances, writing credits, and rare stage performances. Rick James died on August 6, 2004, at age 56 in Los Angeles from pulmonary and cardiac failure, with 9 drugs, cocaine included, still in his system. He was survived by his children and a complicated legacy, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $7 million. His journey from funk royalty to tragedy remains one of music's most painful falls. Heavy D, as Jake Heavy D, was born on May 24, 1967, in Mandeville, Jamaica. At 32 years old, he played Jake, the cheerful inmate in Life, 1999. His character, whose easy smile hid a lifetime of pressure carried behind the scenes. And in reality, his own body had begun sending warnings long before anyone realized how serious they were. His short marriage to Yvette Herrera was tested early by his battles with weight, the industry's expectations, and the emotional strain of constant touring. Even as he found success with living large and became the face of upbeat New York hip-hop, the personal toll was heavy. Late-night binge eating, crash diets, and quiet dependence on painkillers that numbed the stress he never spoke about publicly. The grief of losing group member T. Roy in 1990 remained a wound he carried through every relationship afterward. By the 2000s, his health fluctuated dramatically. He tried to reinvent himself in acting, appearing in the Cider House Rules, but every comeback was slowed by fatigue, shortness of breath. His weight, once part of his charm, became a medical threat. Behind the laughter and the soft voice was a man battling heart disease, chronic leg swelling, and circulation issues he kept hidden from fans. Heavy D died suddenly on November 8, 2011, at age 44 in Los Angeles, collapsing outside his Beverly Hills home after a blood clot traveled from his leg to his lung. He was buried at Ferncliff Cemetery in New York, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $5 million, and a legacy that ended far too early for an artist who carried joy for the world, but too much weight for himself. O'Neill Compton as Superintendent Abernathy. O'Neill Compton was born on February 5, 1951 in Sumter, South Carolina. At 48 years old, he appeared in Life, 1999, as Superintendent Abernathy, the stern, unsmiling warden whose authority filled every scene. Off-screen, however, his own life was far more fragile than the characters he played. His private relationships were marked by distance and isolation, strained by the constant travel demanded by acting and photography. Acting offered him visibility, but it was photography that consumed him emotionally. Long nights developing portraits, and the pressure to meet the expectations of clients ranging from Johnny Depp to Anthony Hopkins. The life looked glamorous from the outside, yet it exhausted every partnership he attempted, leaving him increasingly solitary as his career grew. Then came the fall in 2003 that changed everything. While living in Brazil, he suffered a devastating accident that left him partially paralyzed. Rehabilitation was long and painful, and even when movement slowly returned, the damage stole the momentum he had built through films like Nixon, Deep Impact, and countless television roles. His health worsened year after year. Diabetes, nerve issues, and chronic infections tied to the paralysis, turning his once restless life into a battle for basic mobility. Compton died on February 18, 2019, at age 67 in Columbia, South Carolina, after complications from long-term medical decline. He was laid to rest quietly, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $1 million and a scattered collection of photographs across the world. Anthony Anderson as Cookie. Anthony Anderson was born on August 15, 1970, in Compton, California. At 29 years old, he played Cookie, the wisecracking inmate in Life, 1999. His role built on fast timing and effortless humor. But behind the laughs was a man whose personal life would later unravel in ways no script had ever prepared him for. As the 2000s arrived, career momentum pushed him into constant work. Barbershop, Hustle and Flow, The Departed. Yet that same workload slowly hollowed out his marriage to Alvina Stewart. They separated in 2014, reconciled, then collapsed for good in 2022, with 2 children caught in the emotional fatigue of 2 decades of trying. At the same time, Anderson was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, a battle he kept quiet for years as he filmed long days on Blackish, often hiding exhaustion between takes to avoid showing weakness. The strain deepened when his stepfather, Sterling Bowman, fell ill and passed in 2022, leaving Anthony responsible for a grieving family, while still maintaining the smiling public persona expected of him. Hosting shows, filming sitcoms, juggling legal disputes, and burying private pain behind punchlines became a survival skill. Fame gave him opportunity, but it also kept him on stage long after he needed rest. As of 2025, Anderson is 55 years old, still working, still navigating controversy, diabetes management, and the emotional bruises of a marriage that ended twice. With an estimated net worth of $40 million, he continues hosting and acting, proving that even a man known for laughter can carry stories far heavier than the characters he plays. Bokeem Woodbine as Can't Get Right. Bokeem Woodbine was born on April 13, 1973, in New York City. At 26 years old, he played Can't Get Right, the silent baseball prodigy in Life, 1999. It was an eerie reflection of the chaos he was battling privately at the time. In the mid-1990s, Woodbine's rising career collided with a dangerous addiction to crack cocaine. Fresh off Jason's Lyric, he spiraled into nights he couldn't remember and mornings he couldn't escape, nearly overdosing more than once. Every relapse cost him roles, friendships, and years of momentum he never recovered cleanly. Meeting Mahalie Woodbine changed the trajectory. Their marriage in 1999 forced him to seek treatment, rebuild trust, and fight the cravings that stalked him through his early 30s. Parenthood made the fight even harder. Acting schedules, temptation on sets, and the lingering fear that one slip would destroy everything he built again. Yet even while wrestling that darkness, he found brilliance, Ray, Devil, and especially Fargo, where his Emmy-nominated performance turned his scars into strength. Now in 2025, Woodbine is 52 years old, living quietly with Mahalie and their child, working selectively and choosing roles that don't pull him back into the stress that once nearly killed him. With an estimated net worth of $4 million, he stands as one of Hollywood's rare redemption stories. Sanaa Lathan as Daisy. Sanaa Lathan was born on September 19, 1971, in New York City. At 28 years old, she played Daisy, the soft-spoken, loyal sweetheart in Life, 1999. Her brief role that hinted at the emotional depth she would soon explode onto Hollywood with. Yet the years that followed would shape her far differently than the gentle characters she often played. As love and basketball made her a breakout star, the celebration was shadowed by a difficult romance with her co-star, Omar Epps. The relationship, intense and fast, collapsed under the pressure of rising fame and constant press speculation. That heartbreak defined her early 30s, carving a distrust that followed her onto sets. Hollywood made things worse. She was repeatedly typecast as the sexy love interest, roles that earned applause but left her feeling boxed in and increasingly alone behind the glamour. The emotional toll deepened during the 2000s, as long shoots, public scrutiny, and industry politics pushed her into isolation. While her peers moved into marriages and family life, she walked out of premieres alone, reminding interviewers she wasn't ready to settle, even though the truth was quieter. She had stopped believing she would find someone who understood the instability of her world. Broadway triumphs, Alien vs. Predator, something new, and later her acclaimed work in Succession proved her versatility, but none of it softened the sting of failed relationships or the pressure to stay perfect in an industry quick to erase women over 40. In 2025, Lathan is 54 years old, still single, still fiercely private, and still working at a level many actors envy. With an estimated net worth of $10 million, she directs, acts, and chooses roles on her own terms, carrying the strength of a woman who rebuilt herself after love collapsed and learned that independence was not a fallback, but a destiny. Every one of these actors carried a burden the camera could never capture. Broken marriages, hidden illnesses, private wars that shaped the people they became. Now that you've seen the